right, thank you very much, Marissa. Our next guest stopping by this morning to chat, and we've been waiting for this sit down for years and years and years.
Decades.
Because she's a local, and it's wonderful. And you can see her actually season 3 of And Just Like That. The first 3 episodes are out now on Max, but you remember her from years on Saturday Night Live and many different movies and shows throughout the year. Ladies and gentlemen, from Upper Darby, PA, Cheri Oteri. Hi.
Hi, guys. What a sweet, warm welcome.
It's nice
It's
to see
true.
you.
I mean, we would look at a picture of you, and you had done some event with Y100, the station we were at years ago. We got to get Cheri Oteri on. She's the best. She's awesome. And it took so much time, but you're finally here. So this is a dream come true because we're massive fans.
Well, you can thank my cousin Mary there.
Yes, thank you, Mary. And
I'm Steve for driving
yes,
in.
yes.
All right, Steve. Yeah.
So you're in LA right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, but do you you get back here a decent amount?
I come back at least once a year.
Okay.
I love coming back in the summer because I love going down the shore. And these guys live on the lake, and they have one of those bikes that you can bike ride on the lake. The water
wow.
bikes.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Those things are exhausting.
It's a good workout.
If you're going against the current,
Yeah.
You don't get very far.
But it's just, and then I get to see all my friends when I come back, and we all meet at a restaurant, like in Delco, someplace like maybe in Newtown Square that's neutral for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was noticing, and I love coming back.
What's your restaurant? Well, let me ask first. Shore town of choice, besides the lake area. Where would you, when you all your years here? Where would the
They
family
lived
go?
in
to?
Ocean City.
Ocean City.
For many years. And I mean, I just loved staying with them in Ocean City. Now they live in Hamilton. But I would say Sea Isle, predominantly Sea
Right.
Isle.
Okay.
And then Avalon is nice, you know. But yeah, but they're down the shore every day almost because they do real estate.
Okay, so you're down there.
Oteri Realtors. Just try and say Oteri without a smile. I dare you. No, I just made that up.
So wait, so Oteri is how you pronounce
Yeah.
it? Not Oteri.
No, it's always been Oteri, and I always say Oteri, but I'll never forget when I first did SNL, I met this tall man with white hair came up to me, and he said, Cheri, I'm Don Pardo. Just the way he sounds, right?
Uh-huh.
And he said, how would you like me to pronounce your name? And I was like, I didn't think there was another really way to pronounce it. And he goes, I like the rhyme, it rolls off the tongue. And so it was Cheri Oteri.
Okay.
So
You know.
there's Oteri's Bakery. Is there a
Yes.
family connection?
Yes, that's a cousin.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my grandparents had a store in Philly when I was a kid, and specialized in meats. And, the Oteri Slaughterhouse.
Really?
We have bakers. I always say there's, different Oteris. Some came over from Italy. They were bakers. And, of course, my family was the Slaughterhouse family. We're a tough crowd.
I can imagine. Yeah.
We are, yeah.
I wanted to ask about you growing up in Upper Darby, and I have to imagine that you were a feisty kid. I mean, the type of performer, the type of personality that you are to be on SNL and to be a performer and do all this stuff.
I was more of a very observant kid.
So you were taking it in.
I was taking everything in
I knew
because
it.
I really didn't have, I always felt like I was born without an identity. And I know that sounds strange, but I was always studying people. And I watched TV, and whatever I saw on television, I would imitate. And, I was really entertaining myself. Mm-hmm. And I was like, when I would wake up, Oteri, party of one, here I come. And the cool thing is, Catholic school and all the dysfunction back in the 70s that was normal.
Right.
Every day. I ended up writing a film about it. And we should be shooting it this September.
No kidding.
Really?
And I believe in Syracuse.
Okay.
Whoa.
Is this?
It's too. It's too expensive to do in Philly because of the
I need to
not
jump in
great
here.
tax incentives.
Does this have everything to do with the Catholic upbringing in Delaware County? I need to be in your movie.
It was more the. I wasn't brought up like my home did not say Catholic.
Okay,
Right, yeah.
okay.
It was more kind of dysfunction, but
Right.
and just and then growing up in grade school, I went to St. Lawrence and then Catholic high school, and it's just and that era of growing up like in the 70s.
Okay.
Well, you did a short film, Turkey's Done. Is this that movie feature length?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because there was talk about trying to get that done. It's a
Yeah.
short, funny stuff. Great, as always.
Well, I live in LA, and it's funny. I was taking my dog for a walk, and this other woman was taking her dog for a walk, and I overheard her accent.
Yeah.
And she was like, "You got to go pee-pee, mommy? Mommy, you got to go pee-pee?" And when growing up Italian, my grandma would say, "What's the matter, mommy? What's the matter, mommy?"
Yeah.
And the boys would go, "What's the matter, dad? What's the matter, dad?" And so I said, "Are you from Philadelphia?" And she's like, "Yeah." She was from South Philly. We became really good friends and ended up making this movie, and we shot it in South Philly.
Is she associated with this feature that you're talking about now? Okay.
No.
Well, let me jump in here because I want to say this is something I've always wanted to tell you because you are just one of the dynamos of SNL. You just a comedic talent. I'm going to fanboy on you because that observant quality that you have. You have your list of characters, and sometimes the default is you just laugh at the character and there's no material. Your material was tremendous with the characters, but what makes it so funny, and I was watching the bit, one of my favorite characters you did was Adele, the crazy office flirt, who did not...
Flirt.
Yeah, would explain double entendres. But I mean, there is so much... With each decision that you make, there could be a million ways to go, and you always pick the right one to do it. I mean, it's laugh out loud funny, and that's a level of performance. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And so, but I said, man, you're so observant to the way people are. When you did your audition for SNL, Rita Delvecio was that. By the way, there's a whole YouTube channel. Who knew that's nothing but the auditions of SNL cast members.
Yeah.
And I mean, yours is like, you're just rocking it. But you did that character, and you laugh at the lines, but you also laugh at the little things you were able to pick out. So were you always mimicking family members? And is Rita Delvecio a family member?
She is a offshoot of my grandma, my Italian grandma, because when I was little, they would go down Atlantic City before the casinos were there, and it was like she was in Drexel Hill, but all of the family was from South Philly.
Okay.
So it was like little South Philly, everybody where we were. And I was studying people because everybody's grandmother lived with them. And we were all playing ball in the street.
Yeah.
And if the ball ended up on anybody's porch, I keep it now. Have your mother come get it.
Yeah.
That's what.
I see that finger, and I'm going to break it. And so I started I was amazed. And you go down South Philly, everything is so tight.
Yeah.
And so my grandmother would go on her porch, and anybody who walked by, "Hi, Da, how you doing?" And just make conversation and just police the street with the kids. Police.
But
this little bastard. 1 second, doll. Hold on. 1 second. Yeah, let me talk to your mother. Like, whatever. But I just, I
But
took
it's so
it all
spot
in.
on. I mean, there's one of the great skits that made me laugh is it's Halloween, and they're throwing the toilet paper at you, and I keep it. And then the little girl shows up dressed as Madonna, and you go, no. That's
There's
the
only
Madonna.
one Madonna, and it's the statue of the Virgin Mother on her lawn. That's the only Madonna.
But that resonates is so real. You have to be a sponge to pick up that stuff from people. It's pretty wild.
You don't realize that you're. Oh, you have it here.
Yeah, we're watching video of it here in the studio.
Oh, I said shit on air by accident.
You can't say it here.
Oh, shoot.
That's okay.
We got it.
We got it. Yeah, no
Okay,
problem.
good.
Did you say I said crap on air before actually saying the word crap on air?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you did.
All right. That's a new one.
I like that.
I said it by accident.
Wait, on SNL you said it?
Yeah.
During the bit.
I thought you meant here.
Kidding.
Yeah, because we got so ridiculous with what falls on her porch that the kids are playing in the street.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, I want to do this. So a hockey net, a whole hockey net gets thrown on that. Like, how does that happen? Right? And it got caught on my house coat button.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. And I go, can you believe this? Shh.
Yeah.
And then it was funny because I went on David Letterman. There it is.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Oh, we're looking at. Oh my gosh.
Now it's going to get caught. And then I'm going to say, can you believe this?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Yeah. I just saw it. We saw the mouth.
Yeah.
There it is. And then I went on David Letterman, and he goes, so I heard you said, something on SNL, and I said, oh, yeah, well, I can't say it now. He goes, no, you can. And then Paul Schaefer goes, I said
Yeah.
The F word. Yeah.
F word on SNL. And, yeah, that was so funny. But then there's another character that people keep playing, my prescription drug lady.
Reardon, right?
And everybody keeps playing it. All these memes. It's a good time to be medicated. Good time.
This character is one of my absolute favorites because you go around and you're right. It's everywhere. Meme-wise, it's ending up because I guess
Because of what's going on.
What you were predicting back then, you would show up to everything and you had your makeup was misapplied and you had 70 little pill containers. Now you were. I was reading an interview where you're talking about that comes from your nana.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Mm-hmm. There she is.
Yeah.
It's a takeoff.
Yeah.
Back then there was no cross-referencing at the
pharmacy.
At the pharmacy.
Yes, right. They just gave you
So
it.
she just traveled. And it's like I would imagine. In my head, I would imagine that was her bar.
Yeah.
Belly on up to the far. She knows the guy.
Yeah.
Where's Cliff? Yeah.
It's brilliant.
A lot of times, like watching these skits now, it seems like, even if there was somebody on stage with you, or even they were in the bit with you, you're often just playing to yourself or playing to the audience, right? Like you weren't necessarily in this one in particular playing to Colin Quinn, and the last one you weren't really playing to David Schwimmer. You were mostly just playing to yourself and to the audience. Is that hard to do as a comedic actress?
No, you're just. I wish sometimes I would enjoy it more, but because when it's live, you get that one shot and you don't get to do it again, and so heavily concentrated.
Yeah.
So, it's like you can't mess up.
Can you? But there's got to be a percentage of enjoyment. It's why you're a performer. To hear the audience, which they would routinely do, laugh their asses off. Yeah.
When they give that to you, there's no feeling like it. But the only sketch that I think I got to really enjoy doing was Morning Latte.
Oh, we are.
Yeah, because I was just sitting there and we would write and crack up writing that. It's just, these people who had a talk show.
It was a Regis and basically a Regis parody.
It was a kind of an amalgamation of all the morning shows that I used to watch because I didn't want to have to imitate one.
Right.
I just wanted to do a compilation of what they all do, and they're just trying so hard to have that chemistry and fun.
Yeah.
But they're very ill-informed, and it doesn't throw them off at all to be ill-informed.
Right. They just got to burn up time. One thing I always always wanted to ask is because a lot of your stuff, it's clearly you writing, and correct me if I'm wrong, clearly writing the predominant amount of what's coming across in these many classic skits.
Well, luckily I learned to write when I was in the Groundlings.
Yes.
And just
legendary Groundlings. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just tell you something. I moved to LA to get in the music business. I was looking at all your gold records, and I was like, oh, I have soul cages because I worked at A&M.
How many years?
Oh, 5 years.
Okay.
I worked that's why I moved there. And I worked at Alma Irving Publishing.
Okay.
Right?
Were you like a local rep, a record rep?
No.
or-
But then I moved to promotion.
Okay.
And whenever MMR would come up, because I worked for J.B. Brenner. And I don't know if you know who he is, and Steve Bartles and Scotty Fink. And whenever we got, one of our artists on MMR. I was like, wow, you are a P1 MMR.
You know the terms.
I
Yeah,
got so excited.
That's great.
But yes, I worked in promotion, and then the whole time I was taking classes at the Groundlings. And when I finally got SNL, which I would have never dreamt that big, truly, like me to just have a job at A&M and then doing the creative on the weekends, I was like, wow, I have the best of both worlds. Never thinking that I would have gotten to that.
Rated,
but
yeah.
2 years in classes, 2 years in the Sunday company, 2 years in the main company. My first job was SNL.
Wow.
So they came
But
down.
I was writing my ass off because I worked during the day. So I couldn't meet with people to write during the day. So it taught me more how to write by myself. And so when I would collaborate with somebody, it was wonderful, but I just didn't have that schedule. And so it prepared me so much to go into SNL and just hit the ground running writing.
Your stuff is so good, and it cracks me the hell up. And I mean, you're pulling out references that are just brilliant. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. They come down to basically the SNL people are checking out Chris Kattan.
Yeah.
And during a break in his sort of audition, you do a monologue or something, and they say you should come as well.
Well, it was a showcase for Chris.
Showcase for Chris.
And then, just to fill in, I did a sketch.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe they'll remember me for next time. But at that time, I had to quit my job because I was going on auditions for commercials and stuff like that. And I was temping at Disney Legal. Ugh. And then my manager called me and he's like, what are you doing next Monday? And I said, very funny, I'll be here at Disney Legal. And he goes, no, they're flying you to New York to audition from that one thing. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
So, cut to, I auditioned a few times. I get SNL. And on my first year, all the bands that I had worked on their albums, that was in my, that's what they saw.
Yeah, so we're looking at the
Joy
audition.
Lipton.
Yeah, you did two characters, I believe. You didn't honestly. They omitted the one. There's we obviously talked about Rita Delvecio.
Yeah.
And this character, and I think you did a third maybe as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's brilliant.
But so my first year, Prince was supposed to open the show. He canceled. Blues Traveler comes in. I'm like, because we worked Blues Traveler,
At A&M,
and
yeah.
John Popper's like, aren't you the girl from The Office? How'd you get here?
Oh, that's why.
Yeah. And then Soundgarden and Sting and Sheryl Crow.
And they all knew you.
Extreme.
They all knew you.
Well, no, I can't say that I was that important there. But, it was very, very cool that everything came full circle. The music, my love for the music, and then
it's amazing.
So you're thrust into this. You this kind of fell in your lap. Saturday Night Live, obviously, they say, okay, come for the audition. You're going to go do that, and all of a sudden, boom, you get it. What is that first season like, transitioning in as a new person? People don't know who you are.
I was very fortunate because when I came in, NBC had taken more of a I would say ownership and
active.
Yes,
They're more active.
Participant.
Yeah.
So they had to agree on who was going to be hired.
Right.
And because the ratings before that were suffering, so they cleaned house. They kind of got rid of
Remember that?
everybody.
And some people just, I think that Phil Hartman, Jan Hooks, they left when you were coming in, right?
Right. But no, they had left before.
Oh, they
that
left
was
before?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Spade stayed.
Yeah.
And Norm Macdonald. But everybody else was new. So I came in, it was like everybody entered first grade at the same time.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So we were all appreciative. We were all so excited, naive, and just grateful. And there was no hierarchy. There was no, cliques formed. And I would imagine it's hard for people to come in when you've got people that have been there for 5 years and you're trying to get your stuff in.
Other cast members have
Right.
talked about that. They come in and there is the established hierarchy.
Right.
And you sort of have to pay your penance. Do you
Right.
remember, I'm sure you do, your first on-air
Yes.
live laugh where you said, oh my God.
No, I remember I said to Molly Shannon, I said, you remind me of like a young Ann Miller. And then I said, that's when people were having cable shows. And I
Right.
said, we should have a cable show where they still got it. And so she goes, well, who can you play? And then we thought, I'll be Debbie Reynolds. And then we start writing with this great writer, Steve Corrin, Leg Up, and the sketch show. And then Lorne Michaels calls me into his office and he's like, Cheri, what demographic are you going for? And I'm like, I don't think about that. I don't know.
Right.
And he goes, nobody knows who Debbie Reynolds and Ann Miller are. And I said, well, I think it might be still funny even if they don't. And it killed.
Yeah.
And the great thing that I'm very proud of is our humor brought in a more diverse audience. I thought gays came in.
Yeah.
And, that sense of humor, when you get that audience, it means a lot. And
you were running all age groups because you said
All
no
age.
one knew who, at least the younger demo wouldn't know Ann Miller. I happen to know,
Right.
and Debbie Reynolds. But it was what you did with those characters. Like when I came on the show years ago and I was bringing up James Mason, and no one's that familiar with James Mason in the demo, but it became a thing. So those characters, even if people didn't know the context of them, the way you portrayed them was great.
it's like we still got it. They were so innocent in their time, but now they're bawdy and they're saying about who they laid.
Yeah.
And like who was drunk, and that would crack me up, because as they got older, they got so bawdy and brazen and like harsh.
Did Lauren admit that he missed that
No.
one? No.
But he was sure happy when we were on the cover of the Washington Post.
Yeah.
And it was me as Debbie Reynolds and her as Ann Miller. And I wanted to go, hey, what about it? What about that demographic?
If you're just tuning in, it's Cheri Oteri who's joining us this morning.
Cheri, I remember the shift because, Casey and I are the same age, and I, was a fan of Sandler and Farley and Spade and that crew right before you. And I admittedly was like resistant to these new cast members. And quite frankly, it was you and Will Ferrell and what you guys were able to do together that started to make me laugh again. And I don't know what it was initially about the dynamic, but I think anytime there's a change, especially to an established comedy cast, there's resistance, right? And so...
For everybody. Everybody claims when they watched it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when it was
That's
good.
the best era ever. That's the one that I grew up on, and therefore it's the best. And then slowly you start to make inroads and start to have some success with it. When did you feel like in 95, 96 season that you guys were accomplishing what you wanted to accomplish as a comedian, as an actress?
When I was in Bed Bath & Beyond and I saw a cheerleader magnet, I'm like standing in line and I looked over and I was like, and I just looked around at everybody and I wanted to say,
Why wouldn't you? So Will Ferrell
who
was
didn't get their magnet?
Will Ferrell was in the Groundlings with you as well,
Yeah,
right? Is
and
that
it
where you
was-
developed that skit?
No, we did it. We developed it at SNL.
Wow.
We're so used to writing.
Yeah.
And so we were all doing an improv session on the 8H stage before we had ever been on them. We just wanted to go down there. And I was, from being in a cheerleader in a Catholic school, whenever you were on a kind of a hollow wooden floor, I would always go, boom, 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 boom.
Right,
And
yeah.
you have that echo.
Yeah.
Don't. So I'm waiting for my turn, and I'm just going like this. And then Will looks at me, and he starts doing it.
Yeah.
And then we start doing it serious. And then I go, we should write a cheerleading sketch.
Yeah.
So a few days later, we're sitting, and it's like, what should we write? And I go, how about that cheerleader sketch? And then we were thinking, okay, what's the hook? And the hook would be that they didn't make it, but they're still cheering it, like the math club and places.
Oh, that's hilarious, yeah.
How many sketches of those characters do you think you guys did? Any idea?
No, but
Yeah.
but a lot of times, because they did reruns, I don't think people realize
Yeah.
throughout a season how many reruns there are. And then I remember getting fan mail, Cheri Oteri better make those sketches shorter or her skirt shorter. And I'm like, it's not, we don't do it that much.
No.
They just it's the reruns.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times guests would come on and say, I want to do the cheerleaders. And we were like, oh man, because they're very hard to write.
And
We
very-
didn't realize how when we were doing it, how difficult it would be to have to repeat all the time, you know, writing the cheers, doing the moves, and they were good, so we couldn't mess up.
Well, you were always dabbing your foreheads and drinking water. I assumed you actually had to do that because they were very physical bits.
No, that was just...
Yeah.
That was just... You know, we're so serious and we're athletes.
All right, I'm going to bring somebody in right now. Yeah. Marissa, come on in. This is...
Oh, my God. Marissa! What?
Marissa.
My name's Marissa. I am a Leo. This is my Halloween costume from 5 years ago. So check me out.
That was awesome.
She has been so...
Marissa,
she's been dying
sex can
to
wait.
do
Marissa, sex can wait. Masturbate.
I love it, yeah.
For the record, we were at M. Night Shyamalan's Halloween party.
Oh, yeah.
This was my costume. My boyfriend at the time was 6'6".
Yep.
So it was perfect.
Yep. Yeah.
And he had like aerialists and fire breathers. My boyfriend and I had a routine. We stole the show.
Yep.
Everyone stopped looking at everyone else. They're like, look at these two.
Oh, that's
You know
great.
what? And when you say when did I realize, you know, that it had an impact? I was in the summer and I was at a kid's birthday and the kids were in the pool and they go, taco, burrito, what's coming out of your Speedo? You got troubles. Pew, you're blowing bubbles. Pew, float, 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 float. You're putting around like a motorboat. Troubles. Pew, you're blowing bubbles. Pew, you stink.
It's so good.
I was watching these kids and I was just like, what? This is crazy.
Oh my God! I mean, you're like, I mean, with Marissa, you know, the excitement level, you're just firmly entrenched into the pop culture. I mean, of all the things you set in motion from Simmer Down and all the catchphrases and things like that, is there one you're particularly proud of?
Gosh, I can't say that, but I think the cheerleaders, because they were so much work.
Okay.
You know, and then you're incorporating, you have to make it great for the guest.
Yeah.
And, you know, how are you going to cast them? So there were so many variables to cover. And, you know, we had to get all the moves down, too. And you have, like, what, a couple of, you know, like 2 days.
Yeah. And to turn
do
it
it.
around, yeah.
I went to a taping. Actually, it was a rehearsal, and you were there. It was
Good job, Marissa.
It was in 1996. Robert Downey Jr. was the guest host.
I remember that show.
Fiona Apple was the musical guest.
Yes, I remember.
And I was not aware about how things work and the rehearsal. And so we watched that, and then we went to the hotel that we were staying at, and then we watched the actual show live. And you guys cut like 40% of the acts
and
out.
here's the thing, the dress show is a 2-hour show.
Yeah.
And whatever doesn't work
Yes.
will
They
get cut.
Yeah.
And so I always say why it's such an emotional and difficult thing is you're essentially writing for yourself and you're competing with the writers.
Yeah.
And then so you're auditioning every week
It's hard.
for a show you already got, but you have to still audition to get in it every
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
And you have to plan, plot, rehearse, get it together. Then you perform it, and then you find out, oh, in 2 hours we're not doing that.
I
You know
am
what
telling
I
you,
mean?
there is more tears shed, you know, because you could be in the show, a couple of things, and then you're completely cut out.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember that happening one time when, like, I had family in, and you know, you're depressed, but they still want to go to the party.
Let me ask you, of this, I was reading, and I don't know if this is true, you and Molly Shannon had put together a skit where you're basically, I think it was just shopping for cards. And it's a
Card
skit
store.
you wanted to get on. And I mean, you're ready to go, and it got cut. And how...
But we both understood.
Oh, you
why
did?
it got cut, believe me. Like, we could not, it was silence.
Yeah.
And we laughed just at how bad it went.
How bad it was.
And, yeah. And there's a card, he puts the index cards and the set show between dress and hair, we all go into the office and you see what made it and what didn't is on the right. And we took card store down and then we just kept hiding it under a stereo thing. So every time, like for like 2 years afterwards, we would just take out, we were too scared, but we wanted to always card store opens the show.
Opens the show.
Yes, you put card store on top. No.
Who did you mentioned guests who it might be participating in the cheerleading sketches. Which guest did you really enjoy working with the most?
I think Jim Carrey, because it was a big deal for him to do it. And he even told me that he had auditioned for SNL, and when he didn't get it, he went through a deep depression for like 5 years.
Right. Wow.
And he's like, Cheri, this is such a dragon for me to slay.
Oh, wow.
So I felt, it doesn't matter how successful you are, I get it.
Yeah.
And I was never so happy for somebody because he had a stellar show.
Yeah.
Everything he did, he killed. And I loved everything that he chose, too. Like, there was a sketch where this guy, Steve Corn, kept trying to get it on, it never, and it was a lifeguard for a jacuzzi.
Oh, yeah.
And
You had the full whistle and everything.
I thought that was so funny, but so many guests passed. And then Jim had the wherewithal. He's like, I'm doing that. I was crying. I was laughing so hard.
It's great.
It was so funny. Everything he did was wonderful. And then that summer, Will and I had gone to his house for a little dinner party in LA. And I said, can I look around? There was other people there. And he's like, sure. I go into this room, and in glass encased were the Joker,
The Mask.
Ace Ventura, and then the cheerleader.
Oh.
And I went, why do you have the cheerleader with all your big? And he's like, Cheri, that meant the world to me.
Oh, man.
Wow.
That's got to make you feel great.
And I was like,
Who was someone you didn't see coming? Who you said, oh, I don't know, this may be an uphill slog. Who turned out to be incredibly good? Somebody from left field, because sometimes you'll see these people and go, why is that person?
I remember back in the day, like Terry Hatcher had a solid show.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you know, and then there's big comedy people who don't. And
It's a different animal, isn't it?
It's a different
From
animal.
stand-up.
Like, no one did it better, though, than John Goodman
Yeah.
to me, and Alec Baldwin, and, of course, Christopher Walken. And the best was doing Rita Delvecio with Christopher Walken, because I had her as my neighbor Vic, who, got, and I love it, South Philly, so the houses are like this,
Yeah.
and he bought a snowblower. Like, for what?
Yeah.
Like 10 inches of sidewall.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm like, Vic, what do I got to do to get my walk? And he's like, oh, Rita, I do your walk. I got to do the whole neighborhood. I'm like, you ain't got to do the whole neighborhood, you Vic. You just got to do mine. And I got pasta fazool. And then the kids are blowing, throwing snow at us. And because he would always kind of over-exaggerate Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
And he was just so funny to watch. And that was really fun doing. And then I did Rita Delvecio with Sylvester Stallone. We never met her husband. She talked about him, but we never met him. And he had just bought a Cadillac Catera.
I remember that.
Yeah, and that was fun. And Rosie O'Donnell and Laverne and Shirley.
Penny Marshall?
Penny Marshall doing she was my neighbor, Therese de Castiglione. And it was Christmas, and we had dueling nativity scenes. And
that's perfect.
someone stole my Black King. I had to get a G.I. Joe. And I'm like, whoever took, I know she did. I know that bitch did. And that was fun. Like, when you do and bring people into that world, you have to create something just as good for them.
Let me ask you just a quick question concerning, you had a time when they were plucking out movie properties, like, oh, these characters make a movie out of this. I mean, with the did they ever?
To be completely honest,
Yeah.
I should have done it, but at that time, I was so spent.
Yeah.
I mean, in every way, that I needed the summer off.
Right.
And I wrote so much, and I was so dependent on myself to write, because then people don't think, oh, she's just writing, she's going to get writing for herself anyway.
Yeah.
I didn't get written for. So it was all on me. There were other people that had choices outside of what they wrote. And so I was spent.
Yeah.
And I just thought I didn't want to spend the whole summer writing a movie, and I couldn't do it during the show. I was it was so much.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize it, and it meant a lot to me. So looking back, I wish maybe I had, but I understand why I couldn't at that
Well,
time.
sure. There are times when people creatively tap out, or you're just, you want to do quality product, but you're so overwhelmed with too much going on in your life that you're going to do it a disservice if
It
you
was
try to
exactly
attempt
how
it.
I felt.
Yeah. So let me ask you, you were on SNL till 2000, 95 to 2000. How did that come to an end for you?
Well, I was pretty spent, and it's a rough place that everybody, and I never felt so much competing against my fellow actors. It was more competing with writers.
Yeah.
That you're not getting that help. But I did have some great writer, like I wrote a lot with a writer, Matt Piedmont, and but so my 5 years, and that was my contract, and so it was like, it wasn't the question. The question was put to me, do you want to renew?
Okay.
And it almost felt like I truly had a choice, and I was spent.
Yeah.
And I just was like, because it's emotional too. And I said, no, I completed my 5 years, and I didn't want to go out, on a downward kind of thing. And I felt proud of what I did. And
As well you should. I mean, we've had a number of SNL, graduates, so to speak, through, and they all say there's no grind like that in anywhere else in entertainment. And the fact that, which I just think is so astonishing, that your quality writing and your output was amazing, but you can't do that, forever. I mean, it'll just kill you, So I mean,
you got to have a really thick skin, as well. And I don't think I did back then, and I always felt like I had to try harder than the next person. I don't know why, but I was always so afraid it would go away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I worked my ass off, as we all did, but I probably maybe put too much pressure on myself as well. So I can't just blame it on, the environment, but it's a rough environment.
What about now? And just like that, you're on.
Oh yeah, that
series.
was fun playing a matchmaker.
Yeah.
And then there's the new show Mid-Century Modern.
I love that show. That show is with Nathan Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
they called me the day before. Hey, can you come in to this great, awesome casting director? Julie Ashton was like, Cher, there's this fun part as a flight attendant, and I always wanted to play a flight attendant. So I was actually a flight attendant in the first Austin Powers, and that got cut out. Oh. Yeah, right? I was like, what? But that was very fun to do. So that was so much fun, and I hope it gets picked up because, Max Munchnick and the guys are like, we are definitely having Denise back, the flight attendant.
Okay.
No, that's terrific because that collective is really good. And had you known Nathan Lane prior?
No.
Yeah.
No, but I was like, I love the Gilded Age. I do love the Gilded Age.
Right.
That show, but it was very hard to go in there because I was so with Max Munchnick and David Cohen, and then Jim Burrows directed.
Yeah.
It was intimidating, and then Matt Bomer and Linda Lavin, and they could not have been nicer. And Linda Lavin, when she passed, she was so sweet to me. I was just at her memorial. They waited and had an Ella in New York, and I just feel so fortunate to have gotten to work with her and been in her light.
She's great. I don't know how they replaced that. She was so great.
I grew up with Alice.
Alice,
Totally.
Yeah, but I'm really excited about coming back here and shooting this movie, based on my childhood. And
we're excited.
I wanted to be closer to Philly, but you guys need better tax incentives.
Yes,
I know.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Philadelphia Film Office has been working on that, and it's a tough nut to crack. So hopefully they'll be able to figure something
And your
out.
Teamsters have a rep. There, I said it. I won't take it back. No, they're a tough crew. They're a tough crew.
They're Philly tough, right?
Before we wrap up, I did want to ask a little bit more about your local ties, because Casey, isn't your daughter working at a place where Cheri spent some time?
no, I actually got to talk to Cheri a little bit before the
No,
interview.
you guys,
Yeah.
can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Why I came out here?
Yeah.
I love entertaining, and I love doing charcuterie boards.
Oh.
And I always have people come to my house, and I have more fun doing it. My cousin Steve is working at the Bruno Brothers, right?
Yeah.
And doing their website. And so he came up with this idea to do a Cher-cuterie board. So I went to the Rittenhouse Square, right? And I got an education, especially from this is her title, head cheesemonger. I'm like, ooh, that's a rough title, especially for a gal. But very learned, and I was just kind of like, she was telling me I was really an education, and I got to pick out everything that I would want in my charcuterie board. And I have never been so proud of curating this, because I wanted, there's things that I love, but I wanted it to be something everybody would love, so I really took that into, and that store is amazing.
And do they sell your charcuterie board? We can get the Cheri
You can get the
Oteri.
charcuterie board.
Wow.
And yeah, it's not just for sympathy gifts anymore, gang. You don't have to die to get a De Bruno.
We are probably the most charcuterie boardist morning show around, because
Are you really?
we've actually made them on air. Yeah. We've talked about them. By the way, have you seen the charcuterie board where the board itself is like focaccia bread?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, honey, I have done everything. I just, to make them myself, I have 2 meats, 3 cheeses, all that I did a taste test, and I was like, okay, this is, it answers to each person. And then I love truffle, but a lot of people don't. So you get a beautiful bottle of truffle oil to put on whatever you'd like. And then I love hot honey.
Yes.
You get a beautiful bottle of hot honey to put on whatever you want. I have Marcona almonds, and you put the truffle oil on the Marcona almonds.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Any figs?
I've got, people do figs. You think, sure, what the fig? But I decided, because I have this cheese, that what would go beautiful with it would be a pear. Because it's almost like a gorgonzola. It's a Stilton.
Okay.
And so you can't travel. You can't have them travel with me. So I have these Asian dried pears that are in there as well. And Mary, what else do I have? I've got the crackers, the De Bruno Brother crackers, and I've got. Oh, and then I was like, okay, people love olives.
Yes, I do.
But I didn't want to put a big jar of olives, and so I did an olive tamponade.
Hello.
Nobody gets hurt. Nobody gets hurt, fellas.
That's one of the most. I told Press I ate a jar of that.
Oh,
by
and
itself.
and you have the
Tamponade.
cracker.
Yeah.
And
excellent.
so and then I had this beautiful, for dessert, this milk chocolate toffee pretzel bar for, it's made by De Bruno, and I feel like it's got everything.
Yeah.
So act now.
Are we
After the
keeping with
beach-
your cousin, the cheesemonger? Is her name's not Leslie, is it?
She's not a
She's
cousin.
not my cousin.
She's just saying she worked with her.
Oh, I thought you
Yeah.
said it,
no,
it was.
she introduced me and gave me the education on all the cheeses.
Yeah, I think we had her.
We
by
had
here.
her
We
in.
did.
Yeah,
You
we just-
did?
We're
yeah,
not kidding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We are charcuterie board people.
Yep.
No doubt.
We can get this right now through De Bruno.
I
through
would
De
say
Bruno Brothers.
I would say give it what?
2
weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay.
But don't forget.
No, we will not.
And I want you to I want to give you my information, because I want you to tell me what you think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All
right.
We'll insist on it.
If you love it, on air. If not, off air. No,
Yes.
no, I know you're going to love it. I have so much. I'm so friggin' proud of
Are
it.
you going to do like an appearance when they start going on sale? Like, are you going to hang out at De Bruno Brothers?
We'll get the word out.
You know what I did? Mary and I did a prank call to the De Bruno Brothers in where was it, Mary? In Ardmore, and I called them and I said, "Listen, I'm in town, and I'm on my way to your place, but I just experienced in Los Angeles the most delicious cheese in the world, but it stunk so bad." I said, "It's a combination of, say, feet and maybe a 16-year-old's hockey bag. The stench was so horrific, but I never tasted anything more delicious. Do you have it? And they go, do you have any idea what it's called? And I was just like, I think it was called something like hog's breath. And so they put me on hold, and they went and they tried to find, we didn't find anything other. I said, that's because I didn't describe it correctly. It's like if halitosis met whiskey and feet. I mean, I just kept saying how stinky it was. And they were so professional.
Yes.
And then they handed the phone off to somebody else. And then I just hear all this laughter in the back. And I was just like, wow, they take it serious. They
Yeah,
were so
they do.
professional.
Yeah.
They were wonderful. And I love that I'm now like a part of it.
Yeah.
So you can now get the Cher-cuterie board.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
In
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we want to find out
All
about
To
that
Bruno, to Happy Delicious.
and the movie. As
Yeah,
the
when
movie
that's happening, let us know.
we need to know
I
about
will.
that. Yeah.
I'll come
Have you
by.
back on.
Yes,
We would love to have
absolutely.
you on. Excellent.
Okay.
Sherry, thank you for being here this morning.
Oh,
It's
my pleasure. I'm so glad
wonderful.
I came.
Wonderful to finally meet you,
Yeah.
and we wish you nothing but success. So thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Cheri Oteri, guys, finally got her on. I love it.